Hello and welcome, everyone. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Yes? Good. I
Yes.
continue that. Okay, so I'll uh, take a few moments to introduce the artist. We are coming to you from South Orange County. Soka University of America is a liberal arts university, a particular kind of university. Uh, and we are dedicated here to the cause of global citizenship, nonviolence, and peacemaking, including, though not exclusively, through art. Um, we are here on the edge of the Pacific, as you might know, at the boundary and a space of encounter between Asia, the wider Pacific world, and the terminus of the western frontier of the United States, also on the edge of a state park and looking onto the wilderness. We host about 450 students, about 50 professors. Arie A contributed greatly to this institution through his service, teaching presence, directorial abilities, and general propensities to omnidirected inspirationalism, of which some of you may have experience. Anyway, our undergraduate class is quite interesting. We have students from Australia, Brazil, Canada, Ethiopia, France, Ghana, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Israel, Japan, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mexico, Mongolia, Morocco, Nepal, Peru, Serbia, and that is not all. I could go on, but if you want a geography lesson, send me a note and we can continue there. I just come out from one of these classrooms where I have that kind of composition. It is wonderful. So I will speak now about the artist, Arie A. Born in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, former USSR in the twilight of Second World War. Arie and his family then returned to Poland, once again at the center of world history. Who knew Arie's times are coming? In 1946, and he spent his childhood during that period. He also lived in Israel before coming to the United States, studied in Rome, Italy, in 1966-67, received a BFA from Tyler School of Fine Arts, Temple University in Philadelphia in 68. And then, an eager scholar that he is, he had to get another degree. And that time it was an MFA from University of Wisconsin-Madison in 1972. I recently visited that campus and that place, and the imprint of Arie's presence is still visible to those who know where to look. Uh, so before coming to Soka University, Arie taught at University of Wisconsin-Madison. See, I told you. School of Visual Arts, New York, of course, UC San Diego, and Fairleigh Dickinson University, among other places. Arie's works had been widely exhibited, including solo shows at O.K. Harris Gallery in New York City and Zola Liberman Gallery in Chicago. Aries is an artist known for his trademark techniques of reflected light paintings, notably heartland chromatic modulation, oil pastel graphite drawings. Aria's versatility is something that is truly impressive, astounding, and fine grained. He practiced art making in not only painting and drawing, but also metal smithing, jewelry, so call in your orders soon, filmmaking, photography, graphic design, and set design. Of course, Arie's most notable world historical, I would say, achievement, and I don't say that lightly, disregard my tone, is 14 Stations Hey Dalet, which is 14 aerial views of World War II concentration camps as they were being flown over by various bombers who, for all kinds of reasons, decided they were not worthy targets for intervention. Time and time and time again, as one is watching these exquisite charcoal drawings, one stands there and wonder, how much energy does humanity spend in avoiding what is so patently obvious and why? So currently his charcoal drawings Spinoza and Ecclesiastes uh, verse 5, chapter 5, verse 8 were on the exhibit in Dreamscape Beyond the Veil in San Diego Mesa College Art Gallery. So I will then, with this out of the way today, I think you have Arie A himself standing by. I'll bring this to a close and simply want to welcome Arie, who will talk about his one of many evolutions to you, an artist, a professor, and a storyteller of note. Please enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you, Oleg. Um, there is a, first of all, if those who see me, you see I have a scar on my face. That's not from any fight, so I could claim I have a Schmiss, like the European German University of Heidelberg people from their duels. No, I just walked into a sticking out pipe in the middle of the night that was sticking out of a parked, uh, you know, truck, and not seeing it because there were lights coming in between us. I walked into it and bled myself up. But thankfully, now I can look kind of dashing later and so on. This particular lecture is called Evolutions. Uh, it's not only personal evolutions, but all evolutions that would be included. Uh, I guess we are here not because of only the amino acids or going up to all the steps of evolution that created human beings, and then the human beings who eventually have passed on their genes to somehow I was born in 1944, and same with everybody else. It doesn't make me unique. But the evolutions as a human being, as an artist, since I decided to take that theme on at this point, because I just turned 80 years old. And no matter which way you look at it, it's pretty cool. It's a major achievement. I probably now it's about two lifetimes of people who lived in the medieval times. But as such, I am taking a look not only on the past and all the people that I am a product of and all the events that created what I'm thinking and all the inspirations, but at the same time, they show you a look into the future. I actually just literally about 10 minutes ago, I was actually stretching canvas for a new set of works. So I will start in my lecture right now. Oleg, thank you very much for your kind words and definitely for your friendship. I really, большое спасибо. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go now and click into the thing that says share. And of course, it doesn't work. How do I share this now? There it is. Can you see it, everybody? Anybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Something is happening here. It's always a chemical problem, isn't it? Okay. Anything happening? Nothing is happening, of course. It would happen like that. All right. Okay. Maybe now. Yes. Whew.
Yes. Yes.
Hi, Tom. I'm back in New Jersey. I will start something as I started with a personal thing. That's me. I got it around 1947 or something like that. Maybe 46 in Poland. My parents. It was taken in the little town of Lubavka in Lower Silesia, which, by the way, used to belong to Germany until 1945. But it was the Polish people from the eastern part of Poland were displaced by the Soviet Union. And then, of course, the people on the west end of Poland overtook the old land of Silesia, which maybe 800 years ago did belong to Poland. I had a very idyllic thing considering everything else is after the war. That's me, the second one on the left, in Lubavko in a field behind my house there. And this is something I show. It's there was a radio, Polish radio for children, and my name used to be Oleg, which is my middle name Alexander, which is really my first name, but I changed it to this. But so I get this letter because had a program, and you were supposed to illustrate the program, and it was about Grandfather Frost. So I sent them my drawing of what Grandfather Frost does, and they sent me this thing. Basically, translation means, Dear Oleg, thank you very much for the drawing that shows the grandfather Frost. Because, of course, there was no Santa Claus because it was a communist country, so it was Grandfather Frost. But too bad that you did not draw it completely by yourself. Surely it would have been more interesting. We are interested only in home handmade drawings of children done with the help of a copier, a carbon paper, a ruler, or someone from adults. Now, I did it myself. My father couldn't draw, my mother couldn't draw, but I did. So I guess I did a very good job that they thought I had somebody else helping me. This is me in first grade. The point is here, if you can see the thing, that's me sitting here back there. What I really like is that here's Poland, but instead of the Polish president on the wall, there's a Generalissimo Stalin. And what it says here, Niech żyje wielki Stalin, chorąży pokoju, means long live great Stalin, the standard bearer of peace. Now, this is all we knew about it, of course, until 53, etc., that he was a bastard and killed millions of people. But this is kind of strange to me that that's where you grew up at this school, and it's in the middle of Poland, but the leader of the Soviet Union was on the wall. That's me at age 12 in the photographs we took when we were leaving Poland to go to Israel. And this is actually something I did when I was about 12 years old. It made on bark. And I was always inspired in carving something. And I loved reading Karl May's books, Winnetou. Uh, some of you are not familiar with it, but he was a German writer who wrote Westerns who never was in the United States, but it was very well read. And I started doing some little sculptures. This is a drawing I did of Lincoln when I came. I was about 14 years old. I came to America, and my art teacher picked this drawing up and he said, Arie, you got talent, but your father is not Rockefeller. I'm going to teach you over the next 4 years in high school so you can go and get a scholarship and get educated so you can become an artist. He was really a total inspiration to me because the way he taught art, he pointed out things that were done wrong, but that's it. He didn't dwell on it. He just dwelled on things that I did right. And as such, without being punished or anything else, I was able to just work with what really worked for me and so on. And I emulated him all through my teaching career. That's one of you notice here on the bottom of the metal piece here that I did in high school in 1960, it says Leonard Gallis. My aunt decided that the name Arie is not American. So she gave me a name Leonard. Arie means lion, and I guess Leonard is the closest thing to lion. Uh, it was hilarious because for years people say, "Hey, Lenny, Leonard," I wouldn't even answer, you know. So finally, when I changed my name 2 years later in '62 back to Arie, I answered anything because people couldn't pronounce Arie because it's Arie spelled in Polish. Uh, so I would answer to Ari, Barry, Jerry, Carrie, Mary, Derry, whatever, which is kind of disturbing but fun. This is one of the sculptures I did that time as a freshman in high school from some wood that I carved with a pocket knife, basically, and did some sculptures. I wanted to be a Chicago artist. So in high school, those are the lines from the Art Institute. I was going there for studying. Now, the evolution of it is that I slowly started evolving by trying to be a quote unquote a artist of Chicago, an artist of note. Uh, this is one of the things I got up at about 6 in the morning to paint this picture outside. This is actually a dirty canal running to the Chicago River. It's winter. I stood out there and I got it painted. And it looks sort of romantic, actually, but it isn't. What I used to do, I had United States Marines munition belts, and I would put my painting tubes into them as I was walking around painting outside. I still have the belts. I took a picture about a half a year ago, and that's me. Now, that's a heck of a warmonger image here. An artist with paint tubes instead of magazines of .75 bullets. I did this in high school. It's a portrait of my father. I started on a Friday night. I didn't sleep. I finished it on Sunday night. It's 42 inches high. My teacher sort of freaked out about it. So did my mom. So for years, she kept bugging me, how come I don't draw her? That I love my father more than I love her. So I did a painting of her. I always use that painting. It's tough drawing your family, painting your family, because she would say, uh, no, I don't have that many wrinkles. No, I don't. I'm not that gray. And I already tried to take the wrinkles out and everything else, because she had me when she was 41, and I'm now at that point about 17. Uh, and so this, I just put it up because I just returned from Japan, and this is my first commission. I was a junior in high school, and this woman had the restaurant. I have no idea why, but she was totally, totally involved in Japanese art. So she asked me to do a Japanese painting. I had no idea what a Japanese painting is and so on, but I went and looked at some pictures and so on and borrowed styles and so forth. And I did that painting. It's actually pretty long. She, for some reason, had it in a restaurant, and then I don't know what happened to it. Even though I was drawing all kinds of things, this is part of my background. This is what I imagine Auschwitz looked like, with the prisoners in the cattle cars and so on. And that affected my life. Like, I'm not alone in that. Most people in my generation in Poland, especially Polish Jews, and Poles and Christians, the same way. It was just a tough time to grow up among ruins. It was just a normal thing to grow up among ruins. And this is something that still bugs me, hurts me. I can't get rid of it. But I switched to painting Chicago. As I said, I wanted to be a Chicago artist. That's the Chicago L. That's the back alley between my house. My house is to the left. My apartment building is to the left. Now, that's one of my favorite things, which is soccer. I always played soccer since I was a kid. I quit when I was, 42. I stopped playing on teams. I mean, it was difficult playing against 18-year-olds. They came to challenge me for the ball. I just let them have it. Uh, and that's me, the third one from this one here. That's me on the Hakoach soccer team in Chicago, second division. Actually won the championship that year. And this is, my father was sick, had cancer. I was taking the bus to go to the south side, and I just saw the people there, and I saw that incredible light that happens in the evening. I was waiting for the bus to go home. I made some sketches, and I painted that painting at that time. That's me, my basic high school graduation. Uh, wow, I had hair. Anyway, I went to Tyler School of Art. I received a scholarship, and I went to the wrong campus, actually. It was kind of funny. That was in the main campus, and at Tyler School of Art, the dean, Charles Leclerc, said, and now we have the Scholastic Arts Scholarship, this year's scholarship winner, Arie Gallus. And I wasn't there because I was looking at something by, the Greek way or whatever it was called. I had to discuss it and think. So this is me already in college. I think it's a slight difference from this to that. Okay. No, I didn't smoke funny cigarettes. I just look that way. I have enough craziness in me. This is some of the artwork I did there. And of course, I played for Temple University. Uh, this is me right here, like that, Coach Pete Linus. Uh, it was a great time. Nobody expected an art major to be a soccer player. But I love it. I love that sport, and all through my life, I watch it and so forth. And this is some of the paintings I did at this time, drawings that I did in college. This was a sort of a watershed painting for me before I went to Italy. It's sort of a crucifixion, sort of a this, and on the bottom right you see here it says Arbeit macht frei, which means work will make you free, and behind it in purple letters says INRI, Jesus Nazarenus Rex Judaeorum. So both of those signs were just not making fun, but disregarding the truth and so forth, just to insult the people. And this is when I was in Italy. I couldn't help but paint crucifixions. and drawing. This is I had a big painting. I don't know what happened to it. I swear to God, it's about 5 foot tall. And this is one of the sketches. That's one of the thieves that supposedly was yelling at Jesus at that point, saying, whatever, look at where's your God now, and so forth. But I only had two people on the painting, and that means that you were supposed to have been, you would have Jesus and that guy, and you were supposed to have been the person who had been saved as the viewer. That's in Italy. My Italian brother in Tuscany on the left, Oreste Tamborini, and Don Alfredo Nessi, uh, my friend and the priest. We had really long discussions. The only reason I've been because he did change evolution in my thinking. One day we were sitting there, and I would come over and walk literally about 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers to his church in the Chiesa di Santa Barbara. And one day he's talking to me, and he says to me, well, always he said, hello, Arie, bicchierino, which means a little glass, because he liked Martel cognac and so on, or Courvoisier, depending what day it was. And we would sit and talk all night. And one day he says, ce ne sono volte che non ci credo che c'è un Dio. So there are times when I don't believe there's a God, which shocked me because he was the priest of the village. And he also was in the concentration camps because he was an anti-fascist. And he said, how could I believe in that when I saw the suffering and the horrors that people perpetrate on each other? Where is the profound God? But he told me he says, I live in a small village. I take care of the people. I am there for their joys. I'm there to comfort them in their sorrow. And to me, God is those actions, not some guy in heaven. I remember that from 1966, and he was a great friend and so on. And we corresponded for quite a while. And about 5 years ago, he passed on. What's funny is I met a woman at the gallery here in Orange County in Santana, and she was Italian. I started talking to each other. She's from Pistoia. And I said, oh, I live not far from Pistoia and so on. And my friend was Don Alfredo Nessi, and she says, you're kidding, he married us. So the world is very small. And that's a painting, sort of a culmination of my realistic style, which was the landscape is actually the landscape right there in the village, but I invented the funeral procession. That's me in the green. Of course, it's my own funeral. And the village I sort of created out of nowhere. And that's my next painting, 4 by 8 feet. It was a change that I didn't believe myself. All of a sudden, everything evolved differently. I had to do the other things, but this started happening. It was organic, somewhat sexual feelings and so on that, I tried to create things of that nature. I also made jewelry at that time based upon the same thing. That's silver with black pearls and white pearls and moonstones. And I also, another evolution in my life was meeting Karl Fernbach-Flarsheim, who was a concrete poet and a person who taught basic design. He was like very well known in the school as being a tough teacher. And I remember in the class, he gave us a very simple assignment to deal something with lines, and I did it. And then once the students put everything out the next day on the walls, he looked around and I looked at my work, and my work looked like total crap compared to everybody else's. I really couldn't believe it, that what am I doing there? I mean, I was one of the two best artists in my high school, but so was everybody else in class. And they did some beautiful drawings. And then Karl Flarsheim, who later became my good friend, he looked at it and he said, there's only one student who got the idea right, and he pointed to my work. I could not believe it. And we came up with this thing on a variation of the N symbol, which is a concrete poetry thing, which is just too long to explain, but you can read about it as a new book came out about Karl Fernbach-Flarsheim. I was interviewed for it, and you can see that. This is part of it. What I do is I assign another word to every letter. And therefore, like if it says the greatest sinner is Te, the greatest, there would be THE, but T could be an R, and H could have been an A, and so on. So things become changed. So as you keep going and keep building up on it, you created not only a visual image, but you created something that's unexpected, but starts to make sense because chaos cannot possibly exist like that. I also was doing sculpture that time. I loved that part. The model, I thought she was beautiful. And I did this piece in clay, of course, cast it in plaster later. And that's the side view of that sculpture. I think I was a sophomore in college. I did this at the same time. I did this sculpture in marble of the same model posing in there, and I kind of liked it. It was an old tombstone actually that somebody donated, and I just carved a piece out of it. And we had a student show, and one piece of art was stolen from that student show. It was mine. Somebody stole this sculpture. I have no idea who has it. If somebody's there in the universe, you have it, please let me know. I don't want it back, but just let me know if you can find it. Uh, so I complained about it to my teacher. How come they stole my work? And he says, take it as a compliment. They didn't steal anybody else's work. So I said, well, maybe you got a point to it. That's another view of it. And this one too, I did the sculpture of a horse in clay, and then I cast it. And the teacher says, you can't do it because it's unbalanced and it's everything else. So what I did is I put wires inside the sculpture before I poured it. Instead of casting in the plaster, I cast it in vermiculite and the polymer emulsion. So it was very light, actually. I still have it. So it's kind of nice to have. And this is another one of the models of sculpture. This is a pretty big one, actually, about, I would say, maybe almost 3 feet tall. And I did ceramics. Rudy Staffel was a great ceramist, was my teacher. Another inspiration, another point of making me involved in a different direction. I love what he did when I first got the right pot together. The first time I was so happy, he just cut it in half. He showed me all the mistakes inside, and he just kept practicing, and I was able to throw something better. At the same time, with college, I acted. That's me on top there. It's it's 6 characters in search of an author. That's the official play. I played the son of the thing, the father, the other younger children, etc. Uh, I realized something that when before the stage opened, the screens were before the curtain rose. I stood there and I didn't remember a single line, not a single line. And until those other characters started talking, then I remembered, and it went sort of okay. Uh, that's about the end of my acting career. I did also metal work at that time. This is the book, The History of Moses. That's Hebrew words, Moshe, Moshe repeated. It's chased, it's copper, it's made on a tar bed. Again, that was Lexton's metalsmithing class. The inside cover, I made the same different kind of thing where I did an embossing of it. And this is, it's filled, a lot of drawings. I'm going to show you a couple. That's just the Israelites crossing the Red Sea. Now comes University of Wisconsin. I applied late, very late. My father developed ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and I didn't have any money. I didn't know what I'm going to do. So University of Wisconsin was very close, and I applied in June for September. And somehow I got it. That's my dad and mom. My father already, at that point, you can see that he was losing control of his muscles. It was horrible for me to watch him slowly pass. But in Wisconsin, I played for the city team of Madison 56ers. I played soccer. I made jewelry. Actually, this one now Sarah has. It's cast out of cuttlefish bone, and the chain was made from wire, which I heated the ends of it. It gets that silver becomes like balls and so on. And that's one of my paintings that started. I had this dream that this thing was happening. Some sky and fiery balls were falling into an ocean and glowing and so forth. And what I liked about it is that the inside of the pods here, they were totally black. And as I was painting, like at 1 o'clock at night, the janitor was cleaning the rooms, and he came up and he looked at my painting. He says, you know, it'd be really interesting if you put the same things here inside the pods. And I just looked at him, and I went over to my paint and I started painting the insides of it. And he looked at me and he said, you're listening to a janitor? And I said, of course I'm listening to a janitor, because you are right, because it makes sense. What doesn't, it's your job, this is my job. And I really, one of the aspects about evolving is don't take yourself too seriously, but take your art seriously. Listen, people do have other ideas, and some of them, and a lot of them are good. Don't fight them. If you see that they're good, use them. And that's some double viscosity prints. It's too long a process to explain on it, but it's the same one thing, cut out zinc plates with 2 colors that are rolled on upon each other. And I did a lot of charcoal drawing. As you say, I was very fascinated with glowing and light. This is pencil. Again, I would say slightly sexual. And this is my painting, which was 20 by 7 feet. And this is the Annunciation. And inside the light here, you would see like a holy sperm kind of thing flying in there. And this is sort of a womb-like creature with eggs and so on. And it's no matter what the initial inspiration is, it's still passed down through a human womb. And I was really very much involved in this thing because this here, by the way, I used to make movies, experimental movies. This movie is called Smile. Uh, I'm not going to run it now because it's 3 minutes long. It takes me 3 minutes from a serious face to get to a full smile that you see here, and then going back to a serious face. You can look at on YouTube. You just click Arie A smile, and you'll be able to see it. It's just too much for this time. Uh, I can't believe it that's me. It's really one of the scariest things that you can think about. However, uh, I was sort of a hippie, so and this is what I was painting. I was painting oysters. People start telling me I'm painting something else, but I didn't. And actually, oysters, I would buy raw oysters, flip them around, and get inspired and work out. This is a pretty big painting. This is 8 by 12 or something like that. And that's the first big painting I've ever sold. It's now someplace in the woman who she was the widow of the Texas Instrument guy, bought this when I was teaching at the Southern Methodist University in Dallas. This is some of the metal works that I did. I was able to make cups. I was assisting a metalsmith in Wisconsin. I also can make chalices and rings. I made our wedding bands and so forth. So as an artist, everything is an inspiration. Every metal somehow shows you something. I was doing all those florist thing and I couldn't get the metal like that. How do you get the metal to have the same kind of folds as my drawings? And I figured it out. Instead of using a circle, which is when you make a chalice, you use a circle of silver or whatever, and you keep pounding it on the stake, and it comes out nice and beautiful and round. This is completely different. What it is I made it into some kind of odd shape, the outside of it. So once I started forming a circle from the middle of the shape, the metal was being pushed and pushed, and it started folding organically by itself. And I really like this effect. I did a lot of those pieces. This is looking from the top to see how those things look like. It was like floral kind of thing. Another film which I can show. It's probably one of the few, maybe it's not X-rated, maybe R-rated vampire films, starring yours truly as a vampire. I love this part because being a filmmaker, writing a script and directing photography, et cetera, for somebody. The good part about this was that I had the dentist in Chicago made me these fangs. And I asked him, how much I owe you? And he says, it's free. I said, why? He said, well, nobody ever came to my clinic to have fangs made. So I thought it was good. I still wear it sometimes and I drive around, just smile at people at stoplights. You know, you get very nice reactions from that when you see this old guy with a hat and canines like that. This is my graduation poster for my Master of Fine Arts. It was a joke. I loved it because, and I bought an ad for it for an art forum actually in 1970. In May, I think the issue is. And, what does this have to do with art? It has nothing to do. It's like Tyrannissimus Stalin and the other painting, It's got a globe and a bust of Dante and necrology books behind it. The University of Wisconsin Historical Society let me have those things. I was able to photograph it there. In fact, what happened with this one was kind of funny because a group of students complained that they have their graduation master show at the same time as mine. And how come I put my ad in an art forum, which is a major art magazine? And to me, the reason was, do you know why I am now an art forum? And they were silent. And I said, because I paid $150 for 1/8 of a page. So you guys get yourself all together, buy a full page and tell them that Arie Gallus's art sucks and mine is better. I just thought it was funny. Later in Flexus magazine, they wrote me up as the first graduate student ever to advertise this Master of Fine Arts show. I started painting triangular paintings. This is actually drawn with oil, ball, pen, from pens, made for marking steel parts. They come in all kinds of different colors and so on. As an artist, you change things, you do things, you take materials that are not necessarily made for art, but you make them use it. To me, that was fascinating. I could do those things, and maybe inspired by Cy Twombly at a certain level. But I like the shape of a triangle facing down because it's very, very uh, active as opposed to something else. And I made a whole bunch of drawings. I also made this film, Lost, The Forest. That was an homage to my father. It shows a partisan burying a baby in a forest of birches. Again, the movie is only 9 minutes, but I can show it to you now. If you, when this is posted, you can do it, but just go to YouTube and say Arie Gallis, Las, or The Forest, and you'll be able to see it. And those are those paintings I made, and those are my first reflected light paintings. This is very bad photography, but I use the colors on the side. If you pay attention to this side here, bright colors which reflected a tone on it. So it was a painting, and then on the side there was reflected light. So I started painting. This is my studio in Madison. I went from Madison, Wisconsin to New York City, and then to Madison, New Jersey. That was my loft. And I was using, now I abandoned the canvas. I was using wooden sticks. And this is a stretcher that I made for it. That's how I painted it. I made a whole jigs like that. I had to design all of this and design the aluminum, design the process, and so on. So all of a sudden, I evolved from a painter into some kind of metallurgist that's trying to do it and learn new techniques and so forth. And I came up with a reflected light piece in 72, and I showed it to my friend Richard Archfager, who's passed on, but who's a really great, well-known artist. And I asked him if I should show it to Ivan Karp, the director of the OK Harris Gallery in New York. I used to do, when I lost my job at SVA, I drove a truck for a couple of years and delivering art through New York and basically all the way up to Texas or Maine. And I asked him, I said, Richard, should I show you my reflected light? Because the whole painting is made of light rather than not. And he said, no, wait till you see what it does. And I did. I waited 5 years before I went over to Ivan. And he didn't want to see the works because he didn't want to come to my studio because I was in New Jersey. So I said, can I hang my work in between shows in your gallery? Which I did. I hung him. He looked at him and he said, and I said, what? And he says, he took a cigar out of his mouth and he said, breakthrough work. And my heart just sort of sunk. I didn't know what to do. And a month later, I get a telegram saying, Arie Kasseri doesn't have enough paintings for a show. Do you have enough works for a show? And I said, yes, I do. I have it. And that's my first show at OK Harris. Ivan Karp discovered some very famous people, Jasper Johns, Rauschenberg, Lichtenstein, etc. He discovered me, but nobody knows. So that's another one of those steps. So here's the piece that I actually finally painted. And this was on exhibit in Chicago, my first one-person show at Chicago. That show was very successful. And I came in just thinking about art, didn't call my friends, didn't do anything literally. And this is in the exhibition. All the image that you see is just light, color reflected off the white wall, on the white wall of the extrusions, the aluminum extrusions. And this woman walked into the gallery with a friend of mine, a girl I knew from high school. I looked at her and I said, it's Friday the 13th. It's my lucky day because that's my wife and that's how I met Sarah. And 3 months later, I asked for a hand and everything else attached to it in marriage. So a hand is, useless by itself. And she said yes. And that's our wedding picture. So I did some other paint. I did this large canvas, an homage to Monet, because he did impressions of light. And this is a lily pond made completely out of light. That's just in the shadows of the colors. I did different experimentation in it. I did some minimalist works later, a few years. The works keep evolving. You see, when you are a very famous artist, which I'm not, if you're a very famous artist and you change your styles or do other things, people say you're progressive, you're working, you're experimenting. If you're not well known and you do different things, there's, oh, you're lost, you're trying to find your way. I don't know why that difference exists, because I believe in changing things all the time because new ideas and new materials always come in. So this is a show at OK Harris with those work was minimalist. This here, see that piece on the right here, it's a pretty big piece. Uh, I get a call from OK Harris that time saying, I got good news, Arie, I got bad news. I said, what's the good news? We sold that big piece to the Saudi prince. I said, that's fantastic. What's the bad news? He said, well, the bad news is he wants to take it home with him to his Nice house in Nice. And I said, what's the problem? Just keep in the painting. I have another one. I loaded up the truck. I brought another painting in. So it was a really fun. I did a whole drawings here. This is based on Vivaldi's music, The Four Seasons. This is my reflected light pieces of a frozen. It's in a collection of the New Jersey State Museum. It was my impression of a frozen river flying over it when I was flying to Chicago, uh, you know, to visit my mom because she was widowed and so forth. My dad passed away. And all of this is just, the white is just the white of the canvas, and the black is just a very dark purplish, bluish to purplish black that's painted on the side of the extrusions. This is I switched to some kind of, I used to work as an electron photomicrographer, and I know about tiling and so on. So I did a whole series of tilings like that. And this is another piece which is called Nosedive. It's a pretty big piece. Thankfully, it's sold. Uh, Actually, the person who bought it put it in his living room, and that picture appeared like a little postage stamp. That's how big this guy's room was. And this is all the images you see is it's an imaginary thing, how it would feel if you're falling down through sort of clouds into the earth. So it's a 5-point perspective. Again, it's all reflected light. Now, in honor of my dealer, this is Ivan Karp, there was a show at the Morris Museum. They invited artists to make things about miniature golf things, all right? And I made something which was it was Ivan, and of course that's a carp, so it's Ivan Karp. And once in the mouth of the carp, you could, when the ball fell in, I had the sensor in there, and the cigar, his cigar would light up saying, "You got a show," you know. He complained to me about the size of the cigar later, but it was all in fun. This here is probably my capolavoro, my most important piece that I've done in my life. Maybe not, but I feel it. That's the 14 stations, Hey You Dalit. It's based upon the 14 stations of the cross, also 14 stations which were the terminals to concentration camps. And Hey You Dalit means God avenged their blood. And as a drawings, I couldn't draw figures, I couldn't draw bodies, but I did research for about 8 years that I was working on it at National Archives and other archives, RAF archives, Polish archives, Polish Air Force, you name it. And I found the images of the camps that were taken actually during the war. And I called my friend Jerome Rothenberg, just passed away not long ago. And I asked him to draw poems, to go ahead with my drawings. It took me, 9.5 years to finish the 15 drawings. And those of you who know me, and I see Tom on the screen, you know how long that takes. Judy also knows it. And, and he did gematria poems. He took the Yiddish name of each camp, and every Hebrew letter has a worth, a numerical worth, like Roman letters have numerical, like an I and a V is 4, for instance. The same thing with Hebrew, So Hey Dalet is 14. It means God avenged the blood, but also means 14. Yud is 10, Dalet is 4, so it's 14. And he did a series of poems based upon that. So there was his inspiration for the gematria of the words and mine. And I figured that between the two of us, the separate made the whole much bigger than its parts. And this is the camp. This is a prologue. This is the camp of Belzhat. That's before it was built. There was a Luftwaffe photograph based upon it. This piece is 4 by 6 feet charcoal drawing. It took me average from maybe 4 months, I would say. Some drawings took me 6 months. It's charcoal, and I have it as a prologue because the area that you see here, when the Nazis occupied this area of Poland, this area was a forest, and they created the death camp where my family was gassed and burned. This is the stage number one, Auschwitz. This is from the United States aerial photograph. They knew what was going on, but for some reason they didn't want to bomb the crematoria. Not until there was a revolt in 45. And this is Auschwitz-Birkenau. And on the bottom, you see those are the Yiddish and Hebrew words, but it's in Yiddish, Auschwitz-Birkenau. And the value, numerical value of all those letters is a value of every one of the sentence. So I will read it the way he will read it. And it says, now the serpent, I will bring back their taskmasters, crazy and mad, will meet them down and deep in the valley, be subdued, separated in life. Uncircumcised, deity shoes stowed away, naked they come, my fathers, angry and trembling, the turbans have you destroyed. Their faces remember small in your eyes, shut down, see a light, take shape in a pit, someone killed, torn in pieces, a terror, a god, go down deeper. And that's again, the final thing of Auschwitz. This is Babi Yar, site of in Ukraine, site of a major killing of 38,000 people in a couple of days, machine gun to death into the ravine. There are other things you can go on the internet and you get more details about each one. I'm not going to repeat it here, but this is Buchenwald. This is the same camp you saw before, but now when the Nazis eradicated the extermination camp, and this is an anti-tank trench. And the reason that trench here is dark and the trench here is white, because that's all filled with human ashes. This is Bergen-Belsen and Frank Dider, but also after the war, my wife, as a displaced person, lived here, which is a SS barracks, for 5 years in Germany when they crossed from Poland into Germany before they came to America in 1951. This is a camp not far from my house, not far from Lubavka, which I showed you in the beginning. It's called Rogoznica. In German, it was called Gross Rosen. That is taken actually in 2001, I think, by a person who was a professor at Warsaw. He was a professor of geology at Warsaw University, and I actually paid him. He flew a private plane and took the picture, so I was able to do this drawing based upon that photograph. And I didn't add anything. I didn't detract anything. I didn't move anything. I could have recreated all the camps if I wanted to, but no, I just didn't want to show anything. It just, when you're looking at this thing, it's like some kind of development. And until you see that this is actually Dachau, and this is actually a forest in Helmno, the Żukowski forest, where, you know, all of this strip here is just a mass grave, all of that. It just scares you when you think about 300,000 people being exterminated. This is Treblinka, Mauthausen, Austria. Nobody knew there was a concentration camp, right? Because, you know, there's a farmstead here, there's a farmstead here, there's a farmstead here, there's a farmstead. Nobody knew about anything happening here. This is Majdanek near the city of Lublin. This is this is Ravensbrück. This is Stutthof. I can't say some of the things. And I did also a series of woodcuts based upon the major killing grounds on that. So what I'm telling you right now, I'm trying to explain this part. Maybe it's all taking count on my life at 80 of what really it is to be an artist. And, you know, I'm showing you that an artist doesn't have one direction. There's so many other things can happen. You evolve in different. So this is corollary drawing. This is my mom in 95. And I did a few drawings, or a number of drawings I'm not going to show, as she was in a special care house and so on. She was conscious and so on, fine. And then I was actually visiting Chicago and they called me that my mom died. So I just rushed over with Sarah to the facility and I couldn't look at her. So I asked the nurse to give me a piece of paper and a pencil. And that's the only way I could see my mom. In fact, I kissed her and she was still warm. And I just wrote there in Polish, Kocham cię zawsze, twój syn Arie. I love you forever, your son Arie. And this is something sinister drawing. Now you see, this is when I was working on the Ravensbrück drawing, which is a all-encompassing. That's beginning. Now look at my hand. You see my hand in a sling? I fell off a roof. I was cleaning the gutters. And some of you, my friends who are watching, remember that, right? And so I went to the hot because I had an extra joint between my arm and my elbow, my shoulder and my elbow. I had an extra joint at that point. Now you notice that wonderful dreamy look in my face. Time that I came from the hospital. That's called morphine. I was just totally out of it. Uh, there was so much pain, I almost threw up. And the doctor, I just asked me questions like, did you fall? Did you lose consciousness? No, the ladder collapsed. Did you do? No, the ladder collapsed. What's the gross national product of Bolivia or stuff like that? And I said, give me some morphine because I'm just almost going to throw up. The pain was not. So they gave me a shot. And then a few minutes later, the doctor came over and says, Mr. Gallis, how do you feel? I said, I haven't felt as good since 1969. And she says, you're going to be fine. So while my hand was healing, I did something called sinister drawing because I did it with my left hand. I couldn't draw with my right hand. I'm a righty. I was a lefty. I guess they trained me to be a righty. So I was able to do drawings. So I did from the x-rays, I did a series of drawings. They're pretty large. They're about a foot by something, more than a foot, maybe 17 inches by something. And this is what my bone looked like in the x-ray. So I did a whole series of x-ray drawings as my bone. And this is the final one. It's me, and the bone is healed. You can see the big lump. So now every time I touch my shoulder, I can see that. This is how the whole show looked at the Morris Museum. That's me, so you can see the size. That's 9.5 years of my life, and Sarah's life, and my kids' life, because that was totally disturbing. I would teach in the daytime, come home, have a dinner, go in the studio, and come back at 3 in the morning or something. It was tedious and so on, but I felt I had to do this. I was honored by Dr. Elie Wiesel, who came to my exhibition and did a speech and so on, and really complimented me in the work. Also, Sister Thering from Seton Hall loved my work, and she sent a catalog to Pope John Paul II, and he actually sent me a letter with divine blessings. So I have it hanging on my wall. I don't know how many Jewish kids got a letter from the Pope. It was a divine blessing, and I really take it as an honor. This is something I did for a show called The First Move of the Wehrmacht. And that's a historical picture, okay, historical picture, which is this picture here, of the Nazis breaking the border between Poland on September 1st, 1939. And I flipped it around so it's a doubled it. I did a charcoal drawing, the Nazi insignia. And then this is actual score of the Ode to Joy. And it says, Alle Menschen werden Brüder, wurde ein sanfter Flügel weilt. So this is beautiful score by Beethoven, totally erased. I erased it on purpose, because this talks about how under the joyful, wonderful wings of joy that the old men will become brothers. And this was such a contradiction to me, of doing this and attacking Poland on September 21. And my father told me being strafed, the child diving into things when they were strafing all over the cities. This is a series of drawings I like to do. This is oil pastels. It was called Flood, Imaginary Floods. Flood in the fall. Now, Hartland reflected light painting. You notice I borrowed some of the things from before. See that? And I made it into reflected light. This is an image that's made totally for reflected light. Now you can see a close-up of it, what reflected light works like. It's just white canvas and the color is reflected on it and the image is totally in color. Also, here's another movie. This is a whole process. I can describe it, but so much easier for you to look. It's a 9-minute film. When you have a chance, again, go to Heartland 2, reflected light painting, and you'll be able to see the whole process, how it really works. I'm now at Soka University, and I'm painting some large works of my last exhibition here. And I did another suite of 60 drawings using graphite in cooperations with Jerome Rothenberg, who wrote poems to each one of the works. That's us, the two-headed artists. Jerome is on the left. In case you didn't know. But he wrote poems based upon whatever the inspiration got him. I didn't censor him, he didn't censor me. So it's 20 each. There was a series of 20 drawings made with eraser and graphite sticks, just geometric shapes like that, and incisions by a stylist and so on. It's a whole thing. Again, it's on my website. You'll be able to see most of it. The next thing is cloud poems, which I did a drawing, not using any graphite, just powdered graphite and an eraser, not using a pencil at all. So you have a few different, I fly and I take pictures out of the airplane window. And I'm fascinated by all my paintings being aerial views of landscape. And this is the pepper tree. It's a pepper tree in Ojai, where Krishnamurti supposedly got his inspiration. And this drawing I decided to make without using an eraser at all, no matter what it is. The photograph was actually square, and I stretched it out to a rectangle by just taking visually and so on the images and moving them around a little bit. But those are my pencil drawings. And the thin lines that you see and so on, again, those are incisions. Whatever I do, I teach my students. Whatever I did, I didn't keep any secrets or techniques and so on. If they can do it better than me, God bless them. And if they do something like I do, then it's the biggest compliment you can get as a teacher, that people actually emulate you. I'm a product, as I said to you, not only of everything that ever lived, but I'm also a product of all of my teachers. I'm a product of their wisdom. I'm a product of my friends. I'm a product of my lovers. I'm a product of my children. I'm a product definitely of 45 years now living with Sarah and the kids. And I'm the grandfather. I have a grandson and a granddaughter. Wonderful, just total joy in this stage of life. Plus, I still can walk up the stairs without falling. So this is some miscellaneous work. I did this for a friend who had a ice cream shop and he wanted to sell cakes. So I made that painting. I came 2 years later. The thing was now in his house. The reason was for that he took it out of his ice cream shop because people wanted those cakes, not the cakes he was selling. So I think that's it. I just did too good a job. It was just I invented the cakes. There was no such thing, you know. I just imagined them. And this is not a cooperation with Jerome. He would write the letters, poems on a blank, send it to me from San Diego. I was in New Jersey, and I would, make it. This is, around midnight. That's the title of the poem with the gematria, and I just created a landscape would look from above at night over a small town flying someplace in the Midwest. Another one of his poems that he wrote that way, and I just created this particular drawing. I did some posters. This is the first poster I got paid for the Madison, Wisconsin lyric opera, The Ballad of Baby Doe, probably one of the famous one of the first American operas. This is Seagull by Chekhov, Chaika in Russian. I actually stole the image from the original theater in Russia and so on to make this poster. Another play that I made, that poster sort of a edged prop, sort of based upon certain things I was shown as a child when I was growing up in Poland. And this I did for the Joseph Papp Yiddish Theater. It is called Lieder von Gan Eden, Songs of Paradise. It was a comedy, very wonderful review. After I looked at it, after I finished it, I discovered that she has the longest arm in the universe. But nobody pays attention to that. I just like the way the image came out. I made a Hippocratic, this is a Hippocratic oath. There was again, it was called about Nazi doctors working. And the first law of the oath was do no harm. Okay. So I took that whole thing in original ancient Greek, I drew it, and then I erased parts of it because they erased them because they conducted all these horrible experiments on people. And that also came out looking like striped cloth of the prisoners, what they wore in the camps. So that's actually was sold to a head of a medical group who actually shows and works and presents people with evidence about the crimes of those doctors. I did a couple imaginary orchids flying from here to San Francisco. You can see things, and so on. So I just looked at them and I invented. It wasn't this. I kept inventing orchids, orange trees and so on. Heartland Tube, acrylic paintings. Again, Vivaldi, 4 seasons breaking into 4 movements. This is spring. This is summer. Actually, this is 4 by 8 together. Okay, 4 by 8 feet. This is fall and this is winter. And it looks like it's black and white, but it really isn't. If you look closer, you'll see everything from brown to pink in there. You know, it's just that the photograph doesn't show you the details on that. I went back to Poland a couple times, 3 times already. And I went to back to my mom's hometown in Galicia, which is there's Galicia in Spain, there's a Galicia in Poland, southeastern Poland, southeast, mostly southeast of Krakow. And I did some drawings based upon the aerial landscapes there. There's an oil pencil. Uh, Again, everything is a tool. Everything is a way to discover something. And I was really fascinated with this landscape, aerial landscape, and from American fields of circles and so on to that. And this is what the whole suite looks like of those drawings. This is a winter suite. This is actually 7 feet tall, all those drawings. And it's based upon a really old photograph taken from some newspaper of Kansas in the winter. And I did, this is very fast drawing, actually. This is was a black Conte pencil and so on. And when I looked at it and I showed my first drawing to my daughter, she says, why don't you put the 2 little cats in there? You know, because we just got some kittens that we got rescues from a fire. And it's Quetzal on the bottom and Pitzel on top. They now weigh over 16 pounds. You know, they're big cats, especially when they sleep on my head. You know, that's another thing. But what I did is I put the cat in every one of the drawings. I made copies of it, give it to my grandkids so they can figure out where they are. But in every one of the drawings, there's actually 2 cats. And for you to have time to look for it, they're right here. You know, two black kitties. So they're all in every one of those things. You went through them. There's cat. It was just a wonderful game. You know, part of art, making art, is just plain joy. I can't even describe how joyous it is to have evolved to the point that I actually can sit there in a studio and just enjoy and literally dance almost when I listen to the radio and I'm painting. It's not. I'm retired, but I call it tired again because I just love doing it. And I know you people who are watching it, friends of mine who are artists, understand that feeling. It's nothing like it. You can't describe it. It might be a drug or whatever. And I don't smoke funny cigarettes or anything, but it's just the joy of being able to create something that never existed. I guess as a man, as a male of the species, uh, I cannot give birth, obviously, but I can give birth to this artworks. And kind of jealous of the women. Anyway, uh, I made a drawing here of for a supposedly eventually a poster for a synopsis, a symposium on Spinoza, and it's Oleg who introduced me. Those are his hands. I have made a quill because that's what you taught you at the school. You taught everything Renaissance way, so we actually had to learn how to make our own quills. And it's in the beginning in Hebrew, it says, Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, the Lord created heaven and earth, and underneath it, Hero Israel. And what Spinoza believed is he didn't believe in old man in the sky, but he believed, he was excommunicated for it, but he believed that nature is really God, So out of his pen just became a universe. And I did a whole lecture, which you can see on I'm getting too many commercials for YouTube. But anyway, you can see on YouTube, you see how this whole thing evolved. And then this is a later work that I did. It's called Ecclesiastes. And it was after the Russian invasion of Ukraine and other things that happened injustices. And this a broken scale of justice. It's charcoal. And it's something from Ecclesiastes says, if you go to a place and you see that justice is perverted, remember that there are people watching over them and other people are watching over them. So don't think that this is just somebody doing it. There's all kinds of system that's behind it. So I just decided to make a broken down scale. It's not physically possible to have the scale that way and fall over. You know, the I mean, it's possible this part, but this here would not work because if that's falling over, the chain would have been here on top. But I on purpose made it that way so you can do it. And the sky behind it I did sort of in the form of Z, if you can reference that. And, you know, I was able to get a very three-dimensional look into it. It's a charcoal, regular charcoal drawing. This is the third of a drawing I did about, the universe, the theory of the universe that based upon my drawings, as you saw, the landscapes and so on. And this is, I got kind of crazy. This is the breaking of the vessels, and that's a whole legend about how Earth, how universe was created, that the light of God was broke out of the vessels and so forth. And as I kept working and spinning my arms and doing the geometries and so on, and then every point I made it like this, I just thought to myself, my God, it's like string theory. It's like, to me, it's like the universe is sort of being born in charcoal. This is my latest works with chromatic modulation, oil pastels, and a series of paintings based upon aerial recount. This is my studio. Now, I started saying, a while ago, this is 2015, I was still doing, this is in Ohio again, I was just doing the landscape here, sitting there on a hill overlooking the mountains and using pencil. And I then, in 24, I decided to imagine what my Lubavka, the fields outside Lubavka looked like. So actually, this is done by a pencil that Oleg and Gina gave me as a gift from Switzerland. It's a very hard pencil. It's almost like silver point. You can't get any darker lines than that. So I kind of like that tonality. And then I started doing very quick sketches because there's a big Saddleback Mountain right outside my view from the backyard. And I decided to make a whole series of Saddleback Mountain. So it's going to be 12. I've been photographing the mountain for over a year now, but I've selected only 12 images. And I'm still too scared to do the color. It's going to be pretty vibrant, not natural colors, but it's going to be realistic, but in a way vibrant, sort of fauve almost. And so I'm too scared to start the canvas. So I decided to start working black and white to work certain ideas out, to see what it is. So this is the first drawing I did in charcoal. It's pretty big. It's 30 by 20 something, 21 by 30. It's after a storm in Saddleback Mountain, and that's what I see from my backyard. And what I liked about it is I was able to do this drawing in about 3 hours, and it was just so much joy to be able to use all the skills that have evolved with me throughout the years to be able to use Kante crayon and powdered graphite and an eraser and to create this drawing. It just gave me such joy. I showed it to some friends of mine. I said, "Oh yeah, you're becoming a 19th century romantic painter." I said, "What's bad with that? I like it. You know, yeah, I am a romantic painter. What's wrong with that? I don't have to have a style. This is something I like doing." And so this is the next drawing I did. We had a snowfall this winter, and I actually was able to photograph it. And then I just used the photograph as a source. I changed things. I moved clouds around and so on. I didn't change the shape of the mountains. But this is basically powder graphite, Kante, and white Kante. That is, again, this is pretty big also. And so this is my second one of the series. There's going to be color versions of it, but I'm still afraid of doing them. And this is the third one. This is a much bigger piece anyway. This is just right after a wind storm we had in there, and I just saw the clouds like that. They were just amazing. They were just being wind driven, and the sunlight was coming out. It was getting sort of toward the end of the day, so it was a definitely side light to them. Again, charcoal, content powdered graphite. Uh, So this is basically where I'm at this stage of my career. Now, back to the future painting projects. So I'm going to have 12 canvases for the suite, right? And also I'm now stretching something else. While I was doing it, I got this idea for something called root. I had a lot of triangular canvases left and so on. So I'll do a lecture on those during next academic year. But you see the little canvases here, those are going to be the 12 canvases for the Saddleback Mountain. And I'm actually today I'm actually stretching the canvases of my triangular pieces. Going back to original theme, yes, everybody's life evolves. You evolve because you come in contact with other people. You evolve because you grow yourself. You evolve because you have joys. You evolve because you have tragedies. You evolve because people like you. You evolve because people hate you. You evolve because people are indifferent to you. You evolve because you have friends. You evolve people that you just meet. You evolve by looking at something by accidents and so forth. I guess now I can say that, I just almost poked my eye out by accident, but I'm doing, it's people live with that. I know a friend who does. Uh, but the joy of this actually saying to myself, yes, I'm now 80 and a half. And I don't know, I can literally cease to be tomorrow or in 10 minutes. I can literally live not a few years. I can literally live not 10 years. Who knows? My mom died, she was 93. But I will not be here, at least in this form. I'm not. I'm probably going to be born as a rabbit someplace else. But at the same time, it's such a joy for me to take those canvas, the stretches that were lying around literally since 1971. And I kept them, dragged them with them across the country and everywhere. And I finally decided to make paintings. And they're going to be the same kind of paintings before with a point of the triangle facing down. And each one, it's called root, but each one is going to be a growth of a tree in abstracts almost, but there's going to be three shapes to that in colors that change, each one with a different symbolism. I have no idea what it's going to look like, just like I have no idea what my Saddleback Mountain things are going to look like. And I guess that's going to be the exciting about to find out what it is. So yes, I'm procrastinating. I'm doing black and white drawings. I'm stretching new stretches that are getting busy. But that's what you need to do. You know when it's right time to paint. Uh, I was in Japan. I saw their works. They were just amazingly inspirational. Uh, Not only 19th century European artists get inspired by Japanese art, uh, but as it says in Buddhism, there's no such thing as coincidences. Maybe there isn't. Maybe everything there is like that, it should happen for some reason. Maybe there's a reason that I knew those people. Maybe there's a reason why I married Sarah and the kids. There's a reason that I have all my friends. There's a reason I'm here right now. And there's a reason too that I have a little scar on my face, or scar to be, but I still can run up a flight of stairs. So I'll take it as an advantage of anything else. So I would like to thank you very much for listening to my rambling here and trying to figure out what life is or what art is. I have no idea about it. I'm just told you the way I feel and the process that happened, what evolved, what no matter how you evolve, you're a different person. You know that there's not a cell in my body that's the original cell that I started with. There's not a thought in my head that's not the original thoughts I had years ago. But I love doing it. I love being with people. I love my family. I love to have a chance to have my studio here at the university and continue being an artist. So thank you very much. And now there's a question.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation, Arie. Thank you. Now we will move on to the question session of our presentation. If you have a question for Arie, please click on that react button on your screen. I believe it's the little heart, and choose the raised hand emoji. When you do that, I will see a raised hand by your name. I will then ask you to unmute. Please do so before you start speaking. Okay? Okay, questions?
Comments, questions? I can see you. I can see someone. Oh, I see.
Yes. Okay, Eve, can you please unmute? We have a question. However, I don't know if Eve has figured this out yet.
I'm going to unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
That makes you look very dashing, that scar on the side there. Adds more character to your already characterful face.
Thank you. You should see the other guy. No.
Yeah, right. This is the one with the steel post, right?
Right.
Thank you, Aria. That was just a wonderful presentation. And Eva, although I've known you for many, many, many years, I didn't know all that. And it was just beautiful to see it, all the work and the way it evolved and all the emotions that were involved. And it was just wonderful. So thank you. Sam and I both enjoyed it very much.
Now, let me just say that I did not know all the stages you went through, and it was very interesting.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Thank you very much for your comment. Thanks. Great.
Oh, by the way, I have your garden ready for you to work on.
Oh yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, I've been pulling roots out here too. Now my back hurts, but I always complain about it. I'm pulling out roots and working in the garden here and complain later about my back, but then I look at it and say, well, I can still do it. So that's good.
That's right.
Any other questions?
Do we have any more questions?
I see Mark, I see Maya, I see Carly, my daughter. Sherry. Oh my God. I see all of you guys. No
Did
question.
everyone get that chat from Sarah? She just sent a thank you, Ari. Such amazing work. You always surprise even me.
Well, I guess the secret of longevity in the marriage, at least in my marriages, is that we grow, we grow each one, but we grow together. We change and we appreciate each one's changes. And, it's just, I don't know. I'm 80. I've been married for 45 years, so it's more than half of my life. So I love you too, Sarah.